Hi, this is Keeper, and welcome to On Air Friday, November 4th. Today's topics: politics and direct selling, the companies, otherwise known as the DeVos Family AMWAY effect. I have a question. What if your direct selling company was at odds with you politically in an ideological sense? Would you continue to do work with them, continue to partner with them? That is the major question of the day. Also, Direct Selling's Political Action Committee. Did you know there was a Political Action Committee for direct selling? I didn't until last night. Also, the major battle that will be resolved this weekend between network marketing giants Herbalife and Zango. It is a battle of the highest order and is critical to the success of the entire direct selling industry. We're also going to give you some information from an online marketing standpoint, some things we think you should know about where it's going, because this will definitely impact not only your business, but also the business of marketing throughout the world. See you in a few seconds. Bye. Hi, this is Keeper, and welcome back to On Air. This very first segment is going to be about politics and direct selling, the companies, otherwise known as the DeVos Family AMWAY effect. But before we get into it, just a side note, if you have any questions about On Air, if you have some topics that you want us to look into, you want us to investigate, if you just want to leave a comment, all you have to do is contact On Air at directsellinglive.com. The link is down below. Or if you want to leave a comment, click on the comments link. That'll take you to the Direct Selling Live On Air page inside of Direct Selling Live. You can leave a comment. It's only for members of Direct Selling Live. So if you want to make a comment, that's how you do it. Now on to the first story. Politics and direct selling, the companies. As I said in the opening, if your company was at odds with you ideologically, religiously, politically, education-wise, would you continue to partner with them? It's very odd that from a direct selling standpoint, yes, we're not employees, we are business partners with some major companies here in the United States, but very often we don't know anything about the management or the owners in their political views and their religious views and their education views or social views or civic views, anything like that. And I think if we did, some of us would actually back up, we would pause and say, wait a minute, I don't know that this is the company for me. For instance, if the company you were with was actually putting money, donating money to a political cause, a political organization, that if you were a woman and you, for instance, believed in pro-choice and you come to find out that they were against that, what would you do? What if it was an association? What would you do? I think it's very clear today that we all understand who we're dealing with and why. Because I look at it like this. If, as a distributor, I'm out making money not only for me, and then my company is also profiting off of it, if they then turn around and take some of that money and donate it to a cause or an individual or an association or a politician that I don't agree with, they are at odds with me. And that is not necessarily going to sit well with me. So we get into what we call the DeVos Family AMWAY effect. The DeVos family are one of the founders of AMWAY. They are just a major, if not the major, the grandfather of direct selling companies. They're not the first, but for a lot of people, they're viewed as the grandfather of all companies, primarily primarily due to the fact that some legal battles that AMWAY has had in the past have really benefited direct selling companies and direct selling distributors. But let me go back to this. The DeVos family is very heavily involved in politics, particularly on the Republican side. They are viewed in a lot of ways like the Koch brothers. The Koch brothers have been spoken about a lot recently in politics. They are all over the place. What your political view for me as it relates to this story is not important. What's important is we understand that politics impacts our business in ways that we may not otherwise have any idea about. So, the DeVos Family AMWAY effect. It wasn't long ago that in 2006, Dick DeVos, when he had just finished up his tenure at running the helm over at AMWAY, which he did between 2002 and 2005, decided to run for the governorship of Michigan. he lost and he decided that he wasn't going to continue. However, his wife, Betsy DeVos, is a very, very heavily positioned political person in the Republican Party. She is very much behind, and this is what got me to think about this whole politics issue. She's very much behind the voucher program that is looking to replace public schools with a voucher program. That, for some of you, may be at odds with what you believe ideologically from a political standpoint, and even for some of you from a religious standpoint. It goes on to say in some investigating that I've done that the DeVos family's crusade to eradicate public education is being marked by a solution to save public schools. But the big donors that are tied to this voucher program are right-wing think tanks that openly advocate and strategize the end of public education. How voucher programs improve public schools is a question for a lot of different people. I'm not in a position to answer it. However, regardless of your political choice, it's important to know who's behind the voucher movement and the agenda they don't share with the public or advertise in their media campaigns. And that's just it. They don't advertise it. The transparency is not there. A new wave of school voucher bills are sweeping the nation, as we all know, which will allow public education funds to be used in private or parochial schools. The new bills are largely promoted and funded by billionaire DeVos families and Koch family, and the core group of other super wealthy rich billionaires. Betsy DeVos is at the helm of organizations that have set the stage for both bills that are primarily being pushed, but you would never know it based on, like I said, the lack of transparency. Chances are, it goes on to say that Betsy DeVos has led campaigns and will probably lead campaigns into just about every state across the nation. So the question is for you, who really is Betsy DeVos? Betsy DeVos, as I said, is the former chairman of the Michigan Republican Party, sister of Eric Prince, founder of defense contractor Blackwater. Yes, that Blackwater. And she is the wife of Dick DeVos, son of Rich DeVos and Helen DeVos. The DeVos family, of course, as we know, are the primary movers behind AMWAY, and their fortune comes from AMWAY. They are also part of a number of other institutes, and they've done some spectacular work. If you happen to agree with what they're doing, you'll find that their work is absolutely spectacular. But the question comes back to this. Knowing what you know about them now, would you continue to support and do business with Amway? That's for you to decide. As I said, I'm into the transparency. I think politics should be about transparency. Dick DeVos and Betsy DeVos have been credited with helping to finance Citizens United, which is very key to all of this because all of you know Citizens United is the case that the Supreme Court on January 21st, 2010 agreed with that corporations are people. Citizens United is that case, and Betsy DeVos and Dick DeVos were primary financiers of that movement. So now I ask you, knowing that, would you continue to do business with them? Understand they are not the only direct selling company engaged in political action. Just about every single one of them are. And we're going to start to investigate as many as we can over the next 14 months. So, the Prince family have also funded Family Research Council, focused on the family, and the ministries of the late D. James Kennedy. And D. James Kennedy signed the proclamation to end public schools. For some of you, that's going to be at odds because you're not a billionaire. You can't pay for private schooling and you depend on public schooling. So what do you do? That's the question for you. When we come back, we're going to talk about Direct Selling's Political Action Committee. See you in a minute.
Here's a deodorant called Axe. Spray it under your arms and across your chest to stay fresh all day. I know you're not touching my mannequin.
Axe, the smell the ladies love.
Welcome back to On Air. Right now we're going to talk about Direct Selling's Political Action Committee. Question, did you know that there's a political action committee that represents direct selling? I didn't until last night. as I was doing some investigating and continued to further investigate this morning prior to the show, I come to find out that the Direct Selling Association has a political action committee, a lobbying firm, if you will. In large part, that's what they do. They are a lobbyist, even though they do put forth education for direct selling, things you might not as a distributor ever hear about. But we actually have a political action committee, and this actually answers a question for me. Earlier this year, Direct Selling Live launched the Direct Sellers Home-Based Business Tax Petition Initiative that supports direct sellers. I was requested by the DSA to send the information so they could investigate it to review whether or not they would support it. They never got back to me. It's not the first time that they have never gotten back to me as it relates to some politically motivated way that we can rally the distributors in direct selling so we can have a political voice in the arena. They typically will request the information but then not get back to you. And now I know why. The reason is they have already had in place for years a political action committee. As I said, it's called the Direct Selling Political Action Committee. You can look it up on Google. It's all right there. What you find is who they've donated money to, which political parties they've donated to, how much money they've raised, how much they have with cash on hand. But at the same time, it does raise the question, if direct selling has a political action committee, why don't we as distributors know about it? And more importantly, who are they giving money to and why? Because who are they giving money to and why gets to the question, who are they asking to represent me, you as a distributor? Granted, I'm not a distributor with any company. I have not been a distributor for years. But the question needs to be asked, who are they representing on my behalf, on your behalf, without you knowing about it? And what's the criteria for them giving money to a congressman, a senator, a Republican Party, a Democratic Party, a Libertarian Party, Independent Party? What's the criteria? When you investigate the Direct Selling Political Action Committee, you find that they tell you everything that you need to know so that you can get a better understanding of what's going on. Last year, Direct Selling Live started doing polling with all of our members to find out what's your political view, what's your political position. It turns out that 70% of all the people who came and signed up on Direct Selling Live, 70% of them identified themselves as Democrats. 10% identified themselves as Republicans. The other 20%, that was kind of, broken up between independent, libertarian. In fact, 5% identified themselves as Tea Party, even though we typically look at it as Tea Party group. That's part of the larger Republican Party, but they decided to identify themselves as Republicans. I think it's important because if the large majority of distributors have a view of one side politically or on the ideological spectrum, religiously, education-wise, social-wise, and it then turns out that the DSA, who represents companies at the management level, if it comes to find out that they are more in line with the Republican side, and I'm not saying that they are because I have no idea. In fact, when you look and investigate, you find that they've donated money almost 50% down the line. It just depends on what year. For instance, in 2010, they raised close to $74,000. That's how much they got in donations. And they spent some $37,000, so they have quite a bit, almost half of it left they have that much left over. I'm able to find out who on the direct selling side has donated to the Direct Selling Political Action Committee. You got Pampered Chef, you've got Melaleuca, OxyFresh, Zango. You've got a number of these companies, and it even tells you who the individuals are. I think it's important. I think it's critically important that we know, especially in today's political environment, we need to know who's representing us politically. And it's not to drive a wedge between us and any group in direct selling. What it is for us to identify who we are so that ultimately we can come together as a segment, a voting segment here in the United States, and then put forth some issues on our behalf. The direct selling and home-based business community represents over 30 million people here in the United States. As I said on yesterday's broadcast, we represent the 77th, what would be the 77th largest economy in the world. And yet we have no voice politically, until I found out last night that the DSA has a political action committee that they never talk about. They never talk about to you, they never talk about to me. And now I know why they don't move on any of the ideas that someone, particularly from a distributor standpoint, puts forth that can unite the direct selling community so that we can have a political voice. This is why they have their, what I call their secretive political action committee. Now understand, the DSA, right before Neil Offit stepped down when he was the president, Neil Offit is one of the best and well-known Democrat political people in the world. So you had Neil Offit, a Democrat who worked with the Democratic National Party for years, running the DSA. So I'm not by any way, shape, or form saying that the Direct Selling Association is a Republican group, is a Democrat group. They're all. But I just find it interesting that they have a political action committee and no one knew about it. I think you'll find it just as interesting as I do. We're going to continue to look at this because last year we also contacted the DSWA and the MLMIA to find out what their views were politically, and those two organizations did not respond to our request. In fact, it wasn't until earlier this year when we put forth the home-based business and direct selling tax credit initiative that the MLMIA decided to say they're not going to say anything because they're a 501c3, or more importantly, a 501c6, and they can't say anything politically, which in fact you can if you're a C6. So there you have it. The DSWA, they don't say anything, and I think it's important because they represent millions of women. They represent millions and millions of women in direct selling, and I think it's important that women know where they stand. All right, when we come back, we're going to look at this major battle that's taking place this weekend that will be resolved between, and I don't like to see our companies fighting each other, but this one's going to happen, and it's going to happen between Herbalife and Zango. You know, these are two of my favorite companies. I absolutely love direct selling companies. These are two of my favorites, and I hate to see them doing this to each other, tearing themselves down, tearing themselves apart, but there you have it. We'll talk about it when I get back.
Here's a deodorant called Axe. Spray it under your arms and across your chest to stay fresh all day. I know you're not touching my mannequin.
Axe, the smell the ladies love.
It's not often that you see a direct selling company doing direct battle with each other. It's just something that we just don't like to see. It's not good for the industry. It's not good for our customers. It's not good for prospects. And it's real important that when these things do take place, that, you know, we all have a perspective with all of it and realize that everything's going to be okay. This weekend in Carson, California is one such moment when Zango goes up against Herbalife in the Major League Soccer Western Conference Finals here in Carson, California. Well, yeah, I just kind of set that up for you. What you've got, which is very, very cool, the Western Conference Finals in Major League Soccer, you have the LA Galaxy, whose major sponsor is Herbalife, versus Real Salt Lake, out of Utah, whose major sponsor is Zango. And you see the logos on their jerseys. It's very, very cool. So from a pride standpoint for direct selling, this Sunday in Carson, California, you should all be taking pride that the world is going to be watching direct selling on display. They're going to see Herbalife splashed all over the screen. They're going to see Zango splashed all over the screen. It should be a lot of fun. And this is the type of battle or court battle or field battle that we can all be proud of. Zango is just a marvelous company. Herbalife is a marvelous company, just like so many of them out there. I just absolutely love direct selling. And this is the type of fun battle that I like to see happen. In fact, I love for us to actually do more of this, not in the Major League Soccer league standpoint, but where we put together events that have company versus company to raise money, to raise awareness for charities and foundations. So, this Sunday, Carson, California, the LA Galaxy and Herbalife will be doing battle to see who goes to the the Major League Soccer Championship as they take on Real Salt Lake out of Utah and their major sponsor, Zango. All right, I'm going to close with this. Some really interesting information, some really interesting data from an online marketing standpoint. For anyone in direct selling, for any company in direct selling, this information came to me via eMarketer. It's a really good website if you want to be on top of what's happening in digital media and online advertising. What they are reporting, that publishers are very optimistic about online ad growth as it relates to digital media. It goes on to say online advertising industry has its eyes on video advertising online, which is the fastest growing digital format. eMarketer expects online video and spending to reach $2.2 billion by the end of this year, up 52% from 2010. I mean, it's just growing. By 2015, it will account for $7.1 billion in ad spending. According to online video and ad network BrightRoll, publishers are focusing more and more on digital video advertising. More than 3/4 of U.S. online publishing publishers expect video advertising and in some form to be the top revenue generator for all of advertising across the board in 2012. Most publishers are betting on streaming video, pre-roll, post-roll commercials, kind of what we do here on Direct Selling Live. It's just a way to advertise. But let me give you some information so that you get a better understanding of what's going on. Let me just read this here. Type of online ads that will generate the most revenue next year according to the U.S. Online Publishers Association. In-stream video, which is pre-roll and mid-roll, 63%. In-banner displays, 19%. In-banner video, which are the videos and banners that pop up before video plays. This is what Direct Selling Live is really just really taking a liking to because it's really effective. That's going to be at 9%. In-banner videos, 9%. Mobile is going to account for 6%, and then you've got your search and things like that. It's going to be another 1%. So it's going to be a very, very big business. It's going to be something you all should be looking to do. However, says publishers and advertisers, you know, we all recognize that there are going to be roadblocks that keep people away. And what are those major roadblocks? You know, standardization of the flash players. You know, once those actually standardize, it's going to be more effective for everyone to do their advertising cross-platform. The interpretation of the user's experience or the interruption of the user experience, you know, what are the things that get in the way? There's going to be technical integration, as I said, you know, multiplayer flash players that go across all the platforms from iPod to BlackBerry to you name it. What else? We have the lack of advertisers at this point, which is going to account for maybe about 20%. The matrix, understanding the return on investment matrix will keep some people out at 20%. And then the cost factor is going to probably impact by maybe 17%. However, the trend is there, and it's been there for a long time. It's just now that the mainstream media and most everyone else in the publishing arena and advertising arena recognize that from social to sites like Direct Selling Live, it's the way to advertise with pre-roll, mid-roll, and post-roll commercials. Have a great weekend. See you next week.